So this is the first episode of the Sacred Supplement podcast and video blog. And I have one of my most powerful sisters in Christ consciousness on for this episode. And it has been such a pleasure finding her and having our divine paths cross. And this is a very powerful time. We are recording on June 21st, 2024, which is the summer solstice, and the full strawberry moon, which is just a amazing energy portal to be in right now with a lot that's happening. So without further ado, this is my dear sister, Katie Kinnemeyer, who I'll kind of open up the floor for her to tell of the synergistic magic, how we came into being. It was, I think, I complimented on your Instagram, or we complimented each other.
I think I found you in the community that we were a part of that I like barely logged into. And I logged in one day, like, let's see what's going on. What's the action in here? I haven't been here in a while. And you popped up right away. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, I forget what it was, but there was something on your profile that was like, ping, 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 go check her out. And I followed your links to Instagram and I followed you. And I think you caught that I followed you. So you followed my link, like followed me back over to my Instagram and poked around on my website and whatnot. And from there it was like, hey, let's meet.
Oh yeah. And it was funny because when I was on your website, I was like, who is this woman? Like, what? Like you had and at that time you were working in corporate, you were doing some stuff with them. And I think last summer we ended up developing a program which the world wasn't ready for yet. And it ended up putting us through the ringer of awakening and transitioning. And this is just a blessing to be here and to be able to do this work. So to kind of dial everything back in, this conversation was months and months of us just talking on the phone about what's going on in the world. And I'm actually in the East Coast out of California right now. And so to be on that same energetic ley line, I've sat in this container of witnessing people who are everyday common folk, like how you and I grew up. And it is interesting to see they're awake, they're aware, but they may not know how to get from point A to point B. So I think that this is this dialect of the awakening, the awareness is relevant on the planet. Everyone can kind of see the illusion and see the smoke and mirror show.
That's exactly what I was going to point to, where it's like the illusion, like we almost can't escape it. I mean, the videos going around of bananas that you can't tear apart and watermelon that you can't really bite into, and the information coming out about like what's in our tap water and the soil depletion, we're not getting the nutrients we need, and to the point where, you know, I'm in the Midwest and I'm having conversations with family members and they're like, yeah, this is creeping me out. What do we do about this? And like, these are conversations that even a few years ago, I don't know that they would have entertained. So to me, that's just evidence that this is becoming so like obnoxiously, like it's almost like they're playing in our faces.
Exactly.
So and the question is like, okay, so there are clear choices to be made to stop engaging. Yeah. And that's where, you know, I think we get really fired up in our conversations where it's like, okay, what do we do about this?
Right. And one of the huge communities that we'll be working with extensively is the mom communities, right? So I am a fun Auntie Allison right now. I don't have a child of my own, but being around my nieces and nephews and having to send my sister videos of them taking magnets through baby cereal because there's lead in there. That was frightening.
Yeah.
And the moms community can shut companies like this down because of the vast kind of pull that they have. So it's gone very south. And it's interesting because you have COVID shutting schools down, where finally the parents woke up to the curriculum that their children were studying. You have the pharmaceutical companies that just regurgitate information. People who have been extremely vaccinated, who are just like, I can't believe I even got that. That's insane, because all of the stuff that's coming out now about it. The puppet show election, that is just a smoke and mirror show. And, you know, it's kind of like your old uncle pulling your nose off. And it's like, what are you talking about? My nose is still on my face. So the level of like idiocracy, and it's really relevant. So I think the conversation of, okay, what can you do now? And what can you do if you're an everyday person, if you have a family, if you work a 9-to-5 job, and it's not something that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. You don't have to buy a product. You know what I'm saying? It's something that the every 99.9% of humanity should be able to do this free of charge. So I think that one of the things that we've worked with was daily practice and having a morning practice. Like that for me is non-negotiable. And before I started this path, I would just wake up, go to my email, go to my phone, go about my day. I never understood intentionally designing your day. Like that to me was a foreign sentence. And I did not know that as a human being, I was a master creator and could project my reality into my waking experience. So it really kind of interests me, because I think the people that talk about law of attraction and The Secret is such a convoluted money grab, because they don't even, that's one universal law.
Yeah.
There's 12, and then there's 12 sub laws. So what is your experience then with having a morning practice, waking up, plugging into your I am essence, your multidimensional self, and just allowing the power of intention and the power of the spoken word to completely almost flip the experience that you have versus the days that you don't do that?
Yeah. So, and, I'll confess, like, it's not an everyday daily practice for me. I am somebody who kind of has a longer term routine, but it doesn't look the same every day. But I do notice the days that I get up. I like to go out on my front porch because I can like get that sunshine in my eyeballs, watch the sunrise, and just kind of bake in that a little bit. And like for me, it's kind of moving my body, even just from my bed to my water to my front porch, and then literally feeling the effect of the sunshine hitting my eyeballs. Like there's something that I feel in my body that shifts me. And then, you know, there's like science behind why it's important to get sunshine in your eyeballs that I won't go into, but just that kind of mundane but easy to accomplish act gets me there. And then there's different times when there are mornings I wake up and I just go like straight into it in something that is the most powerful times I experience it is when I have something I'm feeling really deeply, like deeply enough that I don't have words for it. And letting myself just steep in that and let that flow and let that build. And often it feels like there's this presence that comes up through me, and also a presence that like meets me and helps me hold that. Like it's not just me using my imagination for what could be possible. It's just like feeling the existence of this
Of yourself. And
light.
you're saying, right. So this is very powerful. You're saying something here. That's your authentic self.
Yeah.
That's your authentic, eternal, immortal self that never dies, that always exists, that without this body shell is your pure essence. And I call the other version almost a synthetic self, a personality, an identity, an ego, right? We all have to have them to survive on this plane. Ego is not bad, you guys. Ego is when you don't let it consume you or control you, but you have to have a personality and an ego. This is my ego. This is my personality. If I didn't have that, I would just be some ether floating around,
Yeah.
right? As long as you're in a human vehicle, you're going to have an ego, you're going to have a personality. But the freedom from that is when you do not allow that to control the authentic self that you, Katie, just talked about, of that presence that was rising up to meet you. That's that authentic essence that is like, hello, I'm here, I'm love, I'm peace, I'm joy, I'm abundant. I'm this free flowing being that you can't contain. It's this Mercurius kind of embodiment. And that is the vibration of unconditional love,
Yeah.
prosperity, of peace. And so when we're talking about waking up and doing a daily practice, the mornings that I don't do that, I tap into that ego identity of letting just letting the environment control me, responding. I'm like, oh my God, whoa, like why is like everything 1 degree off? Why am I irritated? Why am I getting upset? Why am I carrying? And it's so simple because I didn't let my soul breathe. I didn't let her come out. And you said something to me, I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago, when you were experimenting with how you were moving your body in the morning. And it was like you realized that you were like stomping to the kitchen, or like you were just like and you're like, oh my God, like that is crazy. So talk about that a little bit, because I think that right there is a byproduct of not consciously moving throughout the day, or not even letting that soul essence come up and come through the face and
Yeah.
come into this vehicle.
Yeah. And that's actually another kind of example of like something coming through me, but also me meeting like the presence, God around me. I was in this kind of experiment with a friend of mine, and she really brought forth the question of like, how can we recognize that we're always being provided for? Like, how can we, and this is kind of coming from the conversation of like masculine, feminine polarity and masculine provision. And like, we were trying to step away from that. And so we just took on this little challenge of every day noticing how our bodies felt moving through our homes. Like it was as simple as an awareness of that. And I remember texting her one morning, like, oh my gosh, I just woke up. I like tromped my way from the bedroom to the kitchen. And like, why am I like fee fi fo fum giant stepping around my house right now?
Yeah.
There were other things where it was like, even the way that I was closing cabinets, the way that I was like opening my dishwasher, my dishwasher does, my door does stick a little bit, so it's like I got to whip it open. But with this awareness, I was recognizing that the way I was moving was impacting then like what I was thinking, how I was feeling in my body. So the simple act of, there was a morning where I was moving a little bit more fluidly, slowly, calmly, gratefully through my space. I started doing dishes, and all of a sudden that like triggered me into a little bit more rush. And I need to come back to that word rush. And it, without the awareness, I would have taken that rush into more of my day. And that would have been kind of coloring my entire day with a tone of rush, which is not a pleasant feeling.
Mm-mm.
Um, so without going down the rabbit hole of like the insights around like provision, you're always being provided for. What I will say is, the awareness of how my body is moving and how that affects the way I feel, and what then stories start to pop up. And then being able to catch it when it becomes an unpleasant experience in my system. One of the ways I would orient is, oh my gosh, what's here for me right now? What's here for me right now? As simple as, I've got a roof over my head. I've got food stocked up in the fridge. Like I have a computer to do some of my work with, and, you know, really, really simple things that brings me straight back into I'm here right now, and that's good. Like, it brings me out of all of that efforting energy. It brings me out of ego story that is story that's been built up over years and years that doesn't serve me anyway. Which then empowered with that awareness empowers me to shift and make different choices and make different decisions to build the muscle of, you know, owning a new identity, putting on a new identity, and therefore from that identity, feeling differently and doing different behaviors, believing different things about myself, about my environment, about what I'm doing in the world. Um, and the last
And
thing to wrap this piece up, that rushing piece, like I've been holding myself in a question for the last few months around like grace. I grew up
mhm.
Catholic. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and I'm really coming into um embodied knowing of some of these questions that I asked a lot of questions growing up, but they weren't really satisfied. I wasn't given satisfactory answers. And so I'm
Oh,
holding these questions for myself now. And grace is like, just what is grace from an embodied standpoint? And I will tell you right now, it is not rushing.
no, no. And I love that. So you unpacked you unpacked so much. So I'm going to go back and go forward. Couple things that you hit on extremely well. The solution to humanity right now, in order to make the change and to take back their power from living in the time of transition, is number one, awareness. Just becoming aware. You programming your meta mind, your subconscious, of just doing a simple awareness experiment, whether that's awareness of how you're moving your body, awareness of the thoughts that you're not consciously thinking, awareness of the food and the energy sources that you're putting into your body. Awareness is the best teacher and is the free teacher for every sentient being involved, because when you become aware of something, you automatically start to realign and reattune that.
Mm.
And this goes back to body science. When you fall down and you scrape your elbow, ow, I'm throbbing. Ow, I'm hurting. What's happening? Your body is telling you, become aware of this point. As soon as I put my consciousness there, red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, they all start to do the thing. So pain is a very powerful messenger and one of the most powerful teachers, because pain in your life is saying, hey, put awareness here. Hey, put awareness here. Look here. So when we live in a society that wants to numb and suppress and dish out pharmaceuticals to suppress the pain, that is not doing a service, because that is the messenger and teacher, and that is the door you have to walk through, whether it's an emotional pain, whether it's a physical pain. And we won't get into the conversation of the organs holding metaphysical trauma. Okay, that's a different conversation. But pain is a messenger and a teacher.
Mhm.
Awareness is a conscious cleanser, a conscious cleaner. Once seen, automatically clean. So when you put your consciousness on something, your morning routine, your diet, the way you're moving in the world, you are subconsciously already cleaning and realigning to your true authentic presence, your true authentic soul self. The second thing that you said that was very powerful is you're always provided for. 100 million, thousand, infinity, whatever percent. And that is, and I am a victim of having to pull myself out of it. And here's the thing. This is the time of transition. Everyone's awoke. Our eyes are open. Okay, now we're going to transition to the other way of doing things. We are living almost in a collective goop of that old timeline getting transmuted and transfigured. The faster your brother, your sister, your neighbor, your dog, the bird wakes up to the seventh golden Aquarian age and realizes that they have the power as a transmission tower to send out energetic beams, the faster we all go there. So during the time of transition, yeah, even some of the most practiced ascended beings on the path still fall sometimes into this, oh my God, poor me. Oh, I'm this little human. Okay, really? Come on. Like, and it's funny because I laugh at myself sometimes because I'm like, okay, really, girl, like, you're good. We're good. All is well. But you are always provided for. And it's interesting that you brought the masculine and the feminine, the polarity to that, because when you are embodied in your divine masculine and your divine feminine, and that comes together, the power of your manifestation is a pillar of gold from heaven on earth. And heaven on earth is where you stand. As it is in heaven, it is on earth. The Our Father. Born and raised Catholic, I still practice Catholicism because there's a huge part of why that is the timeline that we are now picking up. When Christ walked and when he transfigured, he didn't transfigure so we could have Easter and go collect candy. No, ma'am. He transfigured to show us what was possible in this human flesh suit, to show us that you transfigure into that Christ light, that you transfigure and you leave the prison of the body. That's the immortal, eternal soul. So there's so much, and having that we're always provided for, that is very challenging when you are living in a world of stimuli that attacks you through EMF waves, through programming, television programs, okay? Conscious to what you're watching.
Social media algorithms.
Exactly. Having poisonous beverages and food that have microplastics in them that are blocking the pineal and the thalamus and thymus. Okay, hi, how are we going to ascend when you got plastic literally ridding your body? So there's different things that keep you suppressed for a reason. Even the clothing. If you wear rayon clothing or nylon clothing, maybe it's not nylon, don't quote me on that, but if you wear plastic clothing, that is the exact same frequency as a dead corpse.
Yeah.
Hello. Wow. Oh, can't meditate, Tim? What are you wearing? Do we have cotton on? Do we have linen on? You know what I'm saying? So,
and to the cotton and linen part, not wearing both of those because they cancel each other's frequency out when you're wearing them together.
You know what I'm saying? So there's so, and the other side, and I call it reverse consciousness, they do that on purpose because there's a section of humanity that has been inbreeded from different timelines that are still in a very Piscean age mentality where 1% eat and 99% suffer. So those that are still trying to control the smoke and mirror show that everyone's seeing, they know what they're consciously doing. So when you're aware and you're like, no, hold on a second. I am the miracle frequency. Hold on a second. I have 5 minutes because I got to get 6 kids out the door and I got to get to work myself. I'm going to tune in, tap in, turn on, call up my highest authentic presence, use the violet flame to transmute any energy that is not mine, and put a living light sphere protection shield around me. So only love and unconditional love and the highest frequency of unity consciousness can come in. Bam. Then I walk out the door. Night and day difference.
Yeah.
And at first, when I started doing this, I felt stupid. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to put a little light circle around me. Yeah. Try it. Don't knock it till you try it.
That, and like for me, there's different presences I feel at different times. Like I can feel when Jesus is next to me. I can feel when Mary Magdalene is next to me. I can feel John, the gospel writer. He's been hanging out with me. Like there's different beings that show up, and they're not all Catholic based either, Christian based either. But like Archangel Michael, like there are these beings that show up for me, and I can like feel the subtle differences in them. And that's almost like walking out the door with like your ride or die best friend. Like the
100%.
peace that that brings in that presence that you then get to carry forth with you throughout the rest of your day.
And I think if you, I mean, and this is another thing too. So the first step of something easy and free to do is awareness. Okay. Second step is ask.
Yeah.
We got cosmic law going on. You're not going to have Archangel Michael show up, be like, hey, babe, da 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 da. No, he is sitting on a position, and even your own guardian angel. We are the amount of protection and the amount of um, legions of light that are here is unfathomable to the human mind. And people who do plant medicine journeys, or people who go to Peru or go to Costa Rica or go, they peel back that veil and they see that. You don't need to do that. You sit in presence and you ask and you shall receive, right? So it's as simple as you saying, hey, having a hard day, calling in some divine support. And if you're not versed to that type of vernacular, call in source.
Yeah.
Whatever's keeping me awake and breathing, and whatever's keeping you awake and breathing, just say source, calling you in.
Yep.
There doesn't need to go ahead.
My like kind of funny example of this is a long time ago, like when I was still living at home with my parents, there was a Easter mass that we were getting ready for, and my parents used to go really early to Easter mass to like get our seats in church. We're like kind of up front, get good seats because it's a full mass. And me and my sister were making the family late, and my parents started kind of barking at us about it. And it's like, look, God will save our seat. I promise you. And I even promise you, God will save our parking spot. We show up 15 minutes before mass. My parents are like freaking out that we're so late. We're not going to get a good seat. We're going to be all the way at the back. And not only did we get our parking spot that we normally get, literally the pew that we sit in every week was the only pew open in the front part of church. And so from that day on, I like have been utterly convinced is not like I have parking angels. I have
Yeah.
parking angels. And whenever I'm going somewhere and I know the traffic's going to be bad or like it's going to be crowded, I send my parking angels to say, hey guys, I need a spot. And they're such show offs. They get me a spot right up front every time. And then I actually recently got the message a few months ago. I kind of got like a tap on the shoulder, like, hey, there's more angels that want more missions from you. So
Yes.
I've got calendaring angels. Whenever something like gets canceled or rescheduled, like I don't worry about why it's getting canceled. I just trust that actually they know something that I don't. There's some reason why me and this person have to meet at a different time. And I've just got
Yes.
like, there's a tons of
Yes.
reasons why I call on angels now because they're there to help. They're not being used enough. They want to help.
100%. No, 100%. And you just, and what happened to you on Easter Mass, you went from a belief to a knowing. You know that when you
Yeah.
call on them, they will answer. And you also reframed your mind. So knowing, okay, the universe always has my back, God always has my back, my parking angels always have my, so it reframes your mind. So when you're in a position of like the doldrums, or you're going through a big transition in your life, you go back to that moment of like, hold on a second. Every time I ask, they show up. Every time I ask, something happens. And it may not be in the way that we expect it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the biggest kind of curve. So knowing that you're provided for, knowing that you're protected, but in order to have that power of the heavenly, celestial, cosmic support, you need to ask, you need to invoke, you
And
need to.
what I would say along with that is, this is really obvious, but you also need to listen. And
Mhm.
it's, there's like this energy or tone of expectancy where you might have an idea of exactly how you want the outcome to be, like what that solution shows up as. But if you decide that you're willing to be surprised and delighted by how this thing is resolved, how your ask comes through, and you say, I don't know what it's going to look like, but then you start kind of looking and listening for it to show up, not to show up in a specific way. One of the things that I've learned is A, it comes through so often, and then B, I've started to recognize ways in which I ask that are more powerful than others. And, sometimes writing does something that's different than just like thinking and asking. That's different than like thinking and asking a specific, like I talk to nature all the time. I've got a big catalpa tree in my backyard that like talks to me all the time. So like there's all these different nuances that you get to play with. And it's not a matter of like doing it right or wrong. It's play with it and see what happens and notice what your relationship with source is. And like we all have our own patterns of design that then plug into the bigger picture in really special, unique ways. So it's only something you
Yeah.
can discover for yourself anyway, with the guidance of others if you choose to look for that. But it really
Yeah.
ultimately is your own choose your own adventure situation.
And then that's the thing. We're all master creators. So play with it. We're all master alchemists. This timeline in 2024 and beyond is for human beings to recognize their power, who you are and what you are. This personality and the ego is a tool and a vehicle that the immortal soul houses itself in. So every morning, practice, talk to your soul, connect to your soul, connect to source, give gratitude. When you align that and then you put your protective sphere of white light, golden light, blue light around you, and you call in your guardian angels, your support, your team, your guides, they feel that. When I walk in a room, sometimes everyone's just like, what? Because I have a million people behind me. I got the legions and army of victory and light behind me. And they're like, oh shit, what?
Yeah.
Excuse my French. So I think that now it's so like it now is it's second nature. If you wanted to punish me, tell me I can't do that. Take that away from me. That would be a living hell for me. Because once you recognize the power that you have, the rest is history. And you get to create, you get to play, you get to do everything. And I said something before the call about the miracle already existed. The miracle's already there. Time doesn't exist. We are in a quantum universe where everything's happening at once. The only reason why you're not the person that you want to experience is because you're on 101.1 and what you want to experience is on 87.8. So the question becomes, how do you merge those timelines and come to that harmonious frequency? How do you merge those timelines of the miracle frequency, the blessing frequency? And it's easier said than done. And a lot of times, maybe it's an initiation, maybe it's a level of trust, maybe there's some clearing that you have to do. But 100% of the time, if you are not in the frequency of that miracle or that thing wanting to be experienced, you'll let it pass you by. What is for you will never miss you. It might have to do another lap around the labyrinth. However, you can master the frequency you're giving off. We're all very powerful transmission towers. So every morning and every night, violet flame, cleanse and clear. Violet is a very powerful transmuter. You can Google it, look it up. And then transmission yourself. Think of yourself as a broadcasting station. If you want to experience love, be love. I'm not the first person to say that. Many ascended masters and they all said it. Be the thing you want to experience. So if you're in a position right now where you're in the doldrums or you're in a low spot, what can you do now to cultivate joy? My biggest thing was cultivate joy daily. And I'm talking about serious depression, serious environment that I didn't want to be in. And I'm like, okay, cultivate joy daily, dance, get out in nature, read a book, meditate, just do things that would just whoop, 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 put up my frequency. The day was over. I didn't become a millionaire. I didn't save the world. I wasn't on, a talk show or stage. No, but what I did do is I had a really good day, and I loved myself, and I had a positive day, and I went to bed at night. I was like, wow, I felt good, and I felt the peace that comes with knowing I'm in the present moment and I'm doing exactly what I can.
And that's so powerful to position yourself. There's this idea that I've been really like letting work me, and it's positioning myself for what I'm holding gratitude for that is not yet actually manifest in my life, but I know is for me. And not only it can feel fake and wonky to just be grateful for the miracle that is not here yet. But there's also the alignment that comes in. If I decide that that is for me and I start being grateful for it, there is kind of that, okay, if I'm a match for that, that means I have to start acting like a match for that. So there are the ways that I respond to my daily life. And that is what I mean when it's time for me to position myself to be the match for that when it does finally show up. And I think what you're speaking to, Allison, is to put yourself in a place of joy in the present moment, grateful for the effort you put into your joy at the end of the day. That makes it easier to build the muscle of positioning yourself for the miracles you're already grateful for.
Oh yeah.
It's a little mind trippy if you've never really like played with this kind of thinking and being before.
And that's the thing. I think that if the listeners from this call got two things, would be one, play with your day, get back that childhood wonder, joy, and awe, and just, it's an experiment. And you want to know what? When I started this journey, God, it seems like decades ago, I went into this to try to prove it wrong. I read like the book The Secret. I watched the movie. It was the dumbest movie ever, because this kid's like, I want to think about a bike. He's like, this kid's like, oh, I want a bicycle. Like the next day, the bike's on his porch. I'm like, okay, this is dumb. Like, I'm like, this is, I studied underneath Bob Proctor when he was still alive, graduated, ascended now, bless his soul. And I was like, all right, you know what does it have to lose? Like I got in a car accident. I didn't have a car. I was walking every day to work in the snow in Southfield, Michigan as a legal secretary. And I was just living paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, I'm already at rock bottom. Like the worst that could happen is like, maybe I get maybe I get caught in a snowstorm. Like I pretty much can't fall any further. And I just started with doing that. I literally was just like, I woke up and I said, power of the spoken word. I wrote every day, I'm so happy and grateful for moving out of Michigan. I'm so happy and grateful for, living a life of abundance. Whatever that was, I wrote it down religiously. Did it feel fake? Kind of. Not really. It just felt like it wasn't me. And but what felt so good was I was like, the power of the pen. And there is this book. I was born in the 90s. There's this book called Harold and the Purple Crayon. My boy Harold. Woo! Oh, Harold, listen. Harold was a G. Harold wanted something. He took out his purple crayon and Harold got it. So I bought a purple pen, and it was Allison and the purple pen. And I kid you not, just that positioning myself in the framework of power, of knowing that what I wrote down was heard, was invoked, and would happen. It might not happen now, but it would happen. And what started happening was like, ran into a guy at the coffee shop, talked about a real estate deal, got offered a different job at work, a car that was for sale in my price range happened to show up. Your reality then just starts to magnetize all these little stepping stones that lead you to your destination. And I'll never forget when I got to California, I was like, oh my God, like I'm here. And it like fireworks didn't go off, angels didn't come flapping down. I just woke up one day in my apartment. I was like, oh, I made it. Oh yeah, wait, hold on. I'm that girl. I flipped back. I'm like, I'm that girl. Yeah. I did it. I'm her. And even recently now in Hawaii, I was in Kauai, dolphins breaching, whales breaching. There's a rainbow. I had these amazing real estate deals underneath my transaction belt. And I'm like, holy shnikes, girlfriend, calm down the self-pity talk. Like you're her. Yeah. You are literally
what
her.
Are you stressed out about?
Right. So I think that there's such a powerful practice in journaling and being grateful for the thing that you're calling in, because that is a direct shot It is, if you're grateful for this thing, then that thing is between my hands. Can't get anything else but that thing. If every day you wake up and you say, I'm gonna do, things are gonna start to change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I love that. I love that. Give me a time. I want to hear something that like was just so magical and powerful that you were like, this is working.
Mm. Oh boy. Put me on the spot here.
Or something that just happened like of you on the path where it affirmed, like almost like your Easter Sunday, where you knew that those angels existed. And then they communicated with you and were like, hey, ask us for more things.
So, my home, like you've heard this story a million times, but I bought a home in 2020 that is a family home. My great grandparents had it built. My great aunt lived in it her entire life. Her
Yeah.
brother, who was my grandfather, and their other sister were born literally in the house. Back in 2020, on paper, I had no business buying a home. I wasn't really trying to move back to this part of town. Um, and my dad called me and kind of told me what was happening with the house, that was actually the right conditions for me to consider buying it. And I came to the house and literally I I came to the house to look at, I've been in this house a million times my entire life, but to look at it through the homeowner's perspective, kind of like, what am I going to need to prepare to invest in it and all that. And while my dad was talking to his cousin who was selling the house, I went downstairs just to get away and alone. And I literally tuned into my great grandma and my great aunt, like, okay, ladies, like on paper, I have no business doing this. Are you going to help me like pull this off? Are you going to help me not fail? Are you going to help me make this happen? I could literally feel both of them like happy dancing. They were both pretty reserved women. So to feel them that exuberant was really
Yeah.
surprising. And this house has been such a, they also told me like, this is going to be your nest for 3 years. And on the other side of 3 years, you're going to be different. Like that's all the information I got. But it was really beautiful to receive that because about 3 months after I moved in, I had something happen in my life that triggered a really intense grief journey that was intense for about a year. And then for the next 2 years, kind of slowly faded. And by the time I hit that 3 year anniversary mark, it was like I was stepping over a threshold. It was almost like something had helped me, um, take away a lot of things that didn't serve me, not just things in my life necessarily, but belief systems and knowing like things that I knew that weren't true. And
Mhm.
so on the other side of that, my 3 year anniversary was last year in September. So about 9 months, is that 9 months ago? Yeah,
Yeah.
9 months ago. Um, and I feel like the power of renewal
Mhm.
infusing my life. And it's been infusing in a lot of ways, but it really feels like it's saturating my life. And there's still this bit of transition I feel like I'm in. Like there are still things that don't feel like they've clicked in the way I'm expecting them to click in, the way I know they're going to click in. But that was like, there's an example of kind of sometimes this stuff doesn't work super long, or
Yeah.
sorry, super quickly. But because I was tuning into myself, different guides, and like letting my body take in the knowing rather than
Yeah.
just believing in my mind, that has helped, I think, build the momentum and like the density, the gravity of what is coming into my life to actually start to land.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that if you, two things, detachment from the outcome, right? It's like having that expectation of the human version of like, oh, this is the best possible way. And then detachment from the outcome. That was the hardest for me because for me, I would be like, oh, like I would feel it, I would see it. I'm like, yeah, like this is going to be, oh, so cool. It is never, ever, ever happened the way that I thought it would happen ever in my life. So now, well, I'm like, you know, I don't even get whatever. My job is to hold the frequency. All my job is, anyone's job, is to wake up and hold the frequency of that thing you want to experience. So if the thing that you want to experience causes joy, happiness, freedom, peace, guess what? Do something now to just generate those 4 feelings. And by golly, that thing will come to you faster than expected. The problem with manifestation, and the problem that I had, was I would know the thing I wanted and be like, okay, I'm gonna do it this way. It's gonna come in this way. I'm gonna have this really cool thing happen here. So every day I woke up, I was like, peace, love, and joy, but constrained to this very specific way. And if it couldn't come in this way, guess what? Ain't happening. So that's the pop. Like, and it was such an aha moment, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, me holding on to this little pinhole of how this needs to happen is trying to fit the whole entire universe into a straw.
One of
Good
the
luck.
things, one of the things that I was told years ago is it's not your job to know the how. It's spirit's job to know the how and take care of the how. It's your job to know the what. And to your point, like holding the frequency, I mean, I feel like that's our next episode. Like this idea of what's it like to hold the frequency, and also the difference between believing versus knowing, and like knowing as an embodied state. But it is not your job to figure out the how. That was another thing. About 2 years ago, I was making a transition. I was kind of changing up how I was doing things in my business. And I kept using the phrase, I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure out. And I had a couple of friends who caught me every single time I said, you're trying to figure out. They'd be like, you're doing what now? You're doing what now? Like, that's not your job to try to figure out. And it's quite a mindset change once you start catching yourself in that, because trying to figure out is striving. That is not what we are meant to be doing as human beings. Challenging ourselves, sure. There's like, a nuanced difference between those kinds of things. I'm not saying we're never supposed to experience challenge, but when it comes to the holding of the frequency for the thing that I'm a match for, the way that I need to be in order to call in this reality, it's like that's the name of the game.
Yeah, 100%.
True confession. I totally just lost my train of thought. So that may or may
No, this is where this is a great place to wrap up, because here's the thing. It is not your job to figure out the how.
Yeah.
And what I invite everyone to do between this week and next week is experiment. All your job to do is become aware. Become aware of these habitual things that you don't really realize that you're doing, that are blocking your blessing, that are blocking your manifestation. Because if you're trying to figure out the how and you're holding the frequency, not going to happen. If you have all of these chatter boxes going on about self-limiting beliefs, not going to happen. If you do not have a 30-second plug-in practice, not going to happen, because it doesn't come through the human. It comes through the immortal, eternal self of the I am, your soul. Simply to say, soul, plugging in. God, plugging in. Source, plugging in. Elephant, whatever you call it, plugging in. You just saying that alone, woo, made that connection. So watch your life, experiment, become your own researcher. Don't take my word or Katie's word for it. Become your own researcher. Watch your life change when you change the vibrational flow and frequency that you're on. And then we can dive in about what does it feel like to hold the frequency, because sometimes holding the frequency it will alchemically change the body, and we experience that in emergence.
Yeah.
So anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Remember to be playful with it. This isn't serious. Like,
oh, yeah.
The things that you want to change about your reality might be super serious. Like I've got some of that too. But the play makes things happen faster. So just be in your play, be in your joy, and play is sometimes it's an easier state of being to find than be in your peace and be in your joy. Like sometimes it's easier to find your play. So let yourself find your play. Let that
Yeah.
fill up your entire system as you learn how to feel yourself and feel this kind of new way of existing.
No, I love that. I love that. And you're 100% right, because it doesn't live on that frequency. It doesn't live on despair, anxiety.
Fear, doubt,
No,
confusion.
it lives on play, love, joy, happiness. That's why, you know, those that should become like children will enter the kingdom. What does that mean? That means goof it off, laugh about it. You know, one of my favorite saints, Saint Tressa Lisieux, who I took for confirmation, she literally just was like, here, take me. And she called it an elevator to Jesus. She just would just raise her hands up, be like, yeah, I'm too frail, I'm too weak, I'm too of a, you know, just put me where you want to go. And I heard this 2 weeks ago, and I love it. Um, Guardian angel, take my hand and lead me to where God needs me to be. Do
Mm.
not let my hand go until I'm there. I love that. I love that, because the message of this podcast episode of awareness of the illusion is taking back your power. And you take back your power, plugging into God's source energy and calling down the cosmic celestial beings that are in the legions, the millions upon millions that are here to help. Ask and you shall receive. And then become aware of this unnecessary noise and programming and just whatever, because holding the frequency is the next step. And then when you hold the frequency, whew, if you're not ready for your life to change, this podcast isn't for you. Forewarning. All right, guys, this was fun, and much love to all that will listen to this in the future, and to all of the cosmic celestial beings that have holded and held space. Holded's not a word, held space here. See, there's my childlike self. In closing, may all of you have a very wonderful, powerful weekend, powerful solstice, calling in the new energy, and remembering that you are always provided for, you are always protected, and you have everything that you are seeking within you, because what you are seeking is seeking you. Make that connection, become that frequency. Don't got to know how, just have to hold it. Love you, love you, love you. And see you guys soon next week for Hold the Frequency.
Bye.